Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Good, Marcel. How are you?
I'm all right. Was hoping you could take us back to that draft war room in 2017. Where did you and your staff feel like your team was at the time? What were you looking for, and what were you hoping to get out of that class?
Yeah, we were looking to pick up the best players we could. Every team's in a different situation, and so we were in the mode of picking up, the best players we could.
And I mean, obviously, saying this in regards to trading the pick that became Pat Mahomes, but it feels like, I mean, since it eventually became Deion Dawkins and Tremaine Edmonds and Trey White, obviously, it feels like you got cornerstones out of that class, or out of what you originally had in that class.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they got a good player in Patrick, and I think we made out as well with Josh and Tremaine and Tre'Davious. However you kind of shape that in terms of the picks that became picks and all that type of stuff. So I think both teams fared awfully well.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean. Obviously, big thing coming out of yesterday's game is the status of Mahomes going into this game. Sounds like he's going to be okay from what Andy Reid says, but still don't know. I guess, how does that impact your preparation this week?
Yeah, we've got work to do to prepare. Certainly, have a lot of respect for Patrick and how he plays the game and what he adds to their offense. But as you saw, with the weapons that they have and the system that Andy runs, I thought Henny came in and did a really good job and won the game for him there. So we've got a lot of work to do as a team, and also in this case, on our defense to get ready.
How much has this offense, your offense, evolved since that Week 6 loss to them?
Well, I mean, I think they certainly out-coached us and outplayed us, and they gave us some fits on both sides of the ball and special teams, and that's where this week comes in. We've got a big week of preparation for ourselves to get ourselves ready to go there against the defending world champs.
And then lastly for me, just how much does your team, it seems like these guys really thrive in that underdog role, even hearing some players talk after the game about maybe what was said about them on TV. Just how much does this group thrive in that underdog role?
I think that's human nature a little bit, right? When people doubt you and say you can't do things and you're not good enough. I think that's a little bit of human nature. And I'm glad our guys, have that approach.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, there was a time where your defense had gone a long time without scoring a touchdown. I think it was back in the December of 2017. So all of 18 and 19 into this year. Now all of a sudden you have 4 touchdowns in the last 6 weeks. Is there something specific that maybe, you guys talk about, or is it just happenstance sometimes? And hey, they're going to come if you're aggressive enough, basically.
Yeah, I think they come in bunches. That's what Jim Johnson how he always referred to it. They come in bunches, and I think that's true. And it also comes back to playing aggressive too, and flying around the guys playing good team football and swarming and gang tackling and all those types of good things.
And you've been in this position before. You've been to conference championship games, even Super Bowls. What have you learned over your time, even maybe going back to that as a coach to throughout, what have you learned about, this week and being, in this type of position as one of the Final Four?
Yeah, it's an honor, number one, to be in the Final Four. And there's a lot of good teams that aren't playing anymore. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to play again as a team and be around one another this week and do the best we can early in the week in particular to try and limit the distractions and the other kind of noise that's out there and focus on our preparation.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, I wanted to stay right there. I know you take each game one game at a time, 1 week at a time, but this is, at least professionally, probably the largest stage for the majority of your players and maybe in their entire football career. How do you keep them focused on this is just another game while it's the game that could potentially propel you into the Super Bowl?
Well, we got to do what's gotten us here just in terms of our preparation, our routines, our schedules, very consistent approach for us this week. And a business as usual approach as well. So these guys know you've got to limit distractions and get down to business in order, if you want to give yourself a chance to win.
Is there any benefit, though, to embracing the moment of understanding what is on the line and what can be accomplished with a win on Sunday?
I think, we're well aware of that. That's what you work towards all season long to get here to where we are. And we have a mature professional group of players, and I think they're well aware of what the next step could be. But if you don't focus on this step, you'll never get to the next step. And I think our players understand that.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Adam Bedini. I know you touched on this before, but does Mahomes' uncertain status impact your preparation in any way? Do you have to expand it and prepare for two quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, again, respectfully, they're so good with the weapons that they have around Patrick. Andy does such a good job. They're well coached. That we've got to prepare for the system. We've got to prepare for both quarterbacks, and that's why we've got a lot of work to do this week, Adam.
Along those lines, last game back in week 6, they ran it very well against you. Part of that you had explained at the time was by design because you didn't want them coming over the top on you. How much is that of maybe a blueprint, or do you build your game plan off of that first meeting as you prepare for this one?
Yeah, we'll see. We've got to look at that and, again, put a good complementary plan together for how we want to play the game and try and win this game. And they're a really good opponent. They're really balanced in all three phases. That's why they're defending world champs. And so we've got to have a good week of preparation, as you've heard me say before, and that's the same this week.
Last one for me real quick. How much, is your defense, it would seem it's in a better place than it was back at that time of the season?
Well, I mean, again, we'll see. I mean, we got our work cut out for us. It's they're a tough offense to stop, and so they've got weapons. They've got a good system, as I've said before, well coached, and as I mentioned before, whether Patrick plays or Henny plays, I thought I was impressed by when he came in and did a good job and helped them win the game.
Sean, thank you.
Sure.
Coach, good afternoon. Mookie Hawkins, Waffle Sports 1080. How you doing today?
Good, Mookie. How are you?
Nothing in the back today? No writings, no good scriptures on the wall?
No, they're back there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Oh, see you covering that up. See, that's cover one. You playing a little cover one right there.
No, man. Normal routine here. Business as usual. Got my kids' drawings in the background.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We also know, Coach, numbers don't lie, but they don't necessarily tell the same truth all the time. And the numbers hasn't gone in your favor the past 2 weeks, but one number has 0 turnovers. How key is playing clean football down the stretch?
Yeah, it's critical. It's critical in every game. The ball is a major factor in the outcome of games, and I think our players understand that. We got to continue to remain disciplined with that, and then take the ball away in the other phases.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Good luck this week.
Thanks.
Hey, Sean, we've asked you a couple of questions about how your team has evolved since the last time you guys played Kansas City, but I'm wondering from just your preliminary film studies and work, how have they evolved since you played them back, at the beginning of the season?
Well, I think they're as strong, if not stronger, and the record reflects that. So, they've gotten some players back healthy. I think their rookies have developed over the course of the season, and that's a credit to their coaching staff. So they're a very strong football team.
Is it overblown at all when a team plays again for a second time? I know obviously you get the division opponents twice, but when it was so long ago, is it kind of like, hey, so much has changed since then that maybe it gets a little bit too much attention that this is a rematch, I guess, of sorts?
No, I mean, I think it's what matters to you most. How much do you put into that game? How much do you take out of that game in terms of what you learned from it? But at the end of the day, this game will be or is a separate entity to the last game. So, but you try to do your best to learn from previous experiences.
Thank you, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, Josh Reed here. The 4th and inches, backup quarterback, and Andy Reid calls a pass play. Game on the line. What does that say about kind of Andy Reid as a coach and his mentality and how aggressive he is, I guess on offense?
Yeah, I mean that's what I grew up around in this league. When I worked with Andy and for Andy, and he's very aggressive play caller, and I was honestly not surprised by the play call, and the execution I think is another thing, and so Andy's very aggressive play caller, very aggressive mindset.
When you looked back at the film and saw Taron Johnson take it back 101 yards, Matt Barkley was one of the first guys in the end zone to celebrate with him. You see Josh in the background jumping up. What's it say kind of about the bond that these guys have, whether you're Taron Johnson, who just had a 101-yard interception return for a touchdown, or Matt Barkley, who's played limited snaps all season, and if you guys are lucky, won't play another snap?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it bodes well for our team just in terms of that bond that you talked about. And it's not the first time Matt's led the celebration. There was I think it was a quarterback sneak in 2018, if my memory serves me correctly, that Josh converted to seal the game against Detroit. And Matt was in the background jumping up, so I think it just really speaks to the bond, the chemistry, the connection that our guys have, and how much they enjoy being around one another.
One last kind of follow-up to that. Is Matt Barkley maybe a little underappreciated for a guy who doesn't, what he brings to that room and what he's kind of done for Josh as a young quarterback?
Oh yeah, he's one of the first guys in the building, and he's one of the connectors or the glue, one of our glue guys that just helps, connect the team person to person in the locker room, outside the locker room. He does a really good job of that. Very, very high character individual, and I think that people respect that all the way through the roster.
Great, thanks, Sean. Appreciate your time.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, Thad Brown. On the subject of that 4th and 1 conversion that Kansas City had yesterday, you said you weren't surprised by it. As a guy who's a head coach in this league and understands all the machinations of how that decision comes into place, all of us, I think the rest of the world looked at it and said, wow, what a gutsy play, what a gutsy decision. From inside, why were you not surprised by it? And maybe can you kind of take us through how a decision like that gets made in a spot where maybe the more conventional play would have been almost anything else?
Well, listen, I think, at the end of the day, that's a question for Andy. Each one of us as head coaches go through our own process to try and make the right decision. Andy's done that many times over as a head coach, making the right decision. That's why he is where he is, and he'll be a Hall of Fame coach here very, very soon. So, I know that he has a good staff around him as well, and so it's not the first time again that I've seen him throw the ball in that situation. So, I'm sure they practice it quite a bit.
Was there any communication between you guys over the weekend? I'm assuming this week will be, radio silence, but was there at all a congrats to him, a congrats from him at all when you guys won on Saturday?
No, he texted me the week before after the Colts win. I'm sure when he had to bye and a little bit more time on his hands. That's the nature of our schedules as coaches. We kind of stick to our own team's schedule.
Understood. Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. It's Jay with the Buffalo News. There have been a lot of reports over the last day or two here about Brian Daboll and his future. Maybe the most recent being that in terms of a head coaching position, the belief is that he is not going to accept one of those or pursue one of those or be offered one of those this year. In the effort of simplifying this, have you been given any clarity whatsoever about that from Brian? And do you have an answer on that, A? And then B, if you do you hope that it won't be a distraction for your preparations this week?
Well, one, I'm confident that it will not be a distraction for our preparation. Brian's a professional. Two, I have had conversations with Brian. I'll keep those conversations private. And then three, I think Brian's very qualified to become a head coach. And sometimes things happen where a lot of factors get involved in those selections and decisions. So at the end of the day, we're happy to have Brian with us for as long as he's been with us, and hopefully moving forward as well. So he's a valuable member of our staff.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Following up on that, you've seen it now from both sides where you were a candidate and now you're a head coach with one of your, coordinators being interviewed. I'm curious what you think of the idea that maybe teams should wait until after the Super Bowl to do this sort of thing. Having been through the interview process when you were making a Super Bowl run and now, when you're trying to do so and having one of your coordinators go through it, just what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's been debated over the years. I think probably as long as I've been in the league, Matt, and it'll continue to be debated on what's the right timing of it all. Certainly understand it from both sides, honestly, just in terms of, hey, it'd be right to wait for the existing team, like us and the remaining teams that are still playing, and then can understand from the interviewing team, just in terms of them wanting to solidify who they have and move their organizations forward. So that's just kind of my assessment of the situation and what I've observed over the years.
And with Andy, what characteristics do you see in him as a person and as a coach that have allowed him to have so much success in two different places, two different eras? As the game has evolved, he's continued to stay at the forefront. What is it about him?
Well, number one, he's a great person. I would consider Andy a man of very high character and yet very consistent, just in terms of his approach off the field, his approach on the field. Just going back to our time in Philadelphia, and I'm sure he's done the same thing in Kansas City. It's fine to have a goal and a vision, but Andy had a plan, and I'm sure same way when he went into Kansas City, he had a plan, and that plan has unfolded, and they've benefited from his blueprint, because getting to 3 AFC Championship games in a row is not easy, and it's a heck of an accomplishment.
Thank you, Sean.
Hey, Sean, Rob Motti, hello from Philly. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. I wanted to ask you, and you don't have to get specific, of course, about your conversations with Brian or with Leslie, but from your experience as a guy when you were a coordinator interviewing for other job opportunities, we often make the assumption that a coordinator should want to be a head coach. Any given job, he ought to jump at it. But how do you evaluate what's right for you, which fit is right for you? Because sometimes maybe a fit isn't necessarily going to work out, and you may want to wait for a different opportunity. Like, how do you evaluate that? And what would you say to Leslie or Brian or really any coordinator about potentially looking at a job offer?
Yeah, I think fit's important. Just overall philosophy, just to keep it rather general, because everyone's different, every organization's different. Every prospective head coach is different, but I would just say, generally speaking, I think fit is important. Philosophy is important on both ends, and for me coming here to Buffalo, just speaking from my own experience, I don't think I really appreciated how important fit was in terms of the community, in terms of fit with ownership and core values and overall philosophy and how we want to play the game on the field, how we want to be impactful in our community off the field, just to name a few things. I think those are what first come to mind.